Whoa, 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 bop.
What's up YouTube? Chris Bandy here. In this series, I'm going to show you how to understand jazz harmony. This tutorial focuses on harmonic features, analysis, and labeling. It does not focus on progressions or performance techniques, although I might make tutorials for those concepts later on. In addition, I teach jazz piano, theory, and composition lessons in person and online, so email me if you are interested. If you have any questions about this video, please check the description before commenting. Thanks to the Coldest Water Bottle Company for sponsoring this series. This 21-ounce sports bottle is solid and sturdy, keeps your drinks cold, floats on water so you don't lose it, has a rubber grip and a handle, is odor resistant, and fits in basically all cup holders. It has been perfect for me every time I go out of the house, and they have 12 different bottle types and a bunch of other products. The brand has over 8,000 5-star reviews, and they offer full refunds if you aren't satisfied. Pick up a Coldest Water bottle today by clicking the link in the description, and use the promo code BANDY to get 10% off your entire order. Alright, let's get into the series. Now, how do we label a chord? In other words, if we know what a chord is, how do we write down the chord symbol for it? It's easy. Just write the root, quality, extensions, alterations, and bass in that order. This type of chord symbol is called a lead sheet symbol. The root will always be a capital letter. As for the quality, here are the labels for each triadic quality. Major doesn't have a label, so leave the quality blank if a triad is major. Augmented is labeled with AUG or a plus symbol. Minor is labeled with a lowercase m. Diminished is labeled with DIM or a raised circle. Sus4 is labeled with sus4 or simply sus. Do not write the number 4 without the sus. That is unclear as to whether the 4 is an added tone or suspension. Sus2 is labeled with sus2. Again, do not write the number 2 without the sus. That is unclear as to whether the 2 is an added tone or suspension. Sus24 is labeled with sus24, with the 2 written above the 4. And here are the labels for each 7th chord quality. Major is labeled with MAJ, or a capital M, or a capital delta. Dominant doesn't have a label, so leave the quality blank if a 7th chord is dominant. Minor major is labeled with MIN-MAJ, or a lowercase m capital M, or an N dash and a delta. Minor is labeled with MIN, or a lowercase m, or an N dash. Diminished major is labeled with DIM-MAJ, or the circle and a delta. Half diminished is labeled with the circle with a / through it. Fully diminished is labeled with DIM or the circle with no slash. Augmented major is labeled with AUG-MAJ or the plus and a delta. Augmented is labeled with AUG or just the plus. Sus major is labeled with MAJ sus or a delta and then sus. You can put the 4 on the end, but it's not necessary. Sus dominant is labeled with sus. Again, you can put the 4 on the end, but it's not necessary. Sus2 major is labeled with MAJ sus2, or a delta and then sus2. Sus2 dominant is labeled with sus2. Sus24 major is labeled with MAJ sus24, with the 2 above the 4, or a delta and then sus24. Sus24 dominant is labeled with sus24, with the 2 above the 4. Now, there are 4 qualities that each have 2 labels you can use, depending on what you and your performers are most comfortable with. I call these alternate labels the altered 5 labels, since each of them includes an altered 5. First, if you take a major 7th chord and replace the natural 5 with a sharp 5, you end up with an augmented major 7th chord. So an augmented major 7th chord is the same as a major 7th chord with a sharp 5. So another label for A-flat augmented major 7 is A-flat major 7 sharp 5. Second, if you take a dominant 7th chord and replace the natural 5 with a sharp 5, you end up with an augmented 7th chord. So an augmented 7th chord is the same as a dominant 7th chord with a sharp 5. So another label for F augmented 7 is F7 sharp 5. Third, if you take a minor 7th chord and replace the natural 5 with a flat 5, you end up with a half diminished 7th chord. So a half diminished seventh chord is the same as a minor seventh chord with a flat 5. So another label for D half diminished 7 is D minor 7 flat 5. Fourth, if you take a minor major seventh chord and replace the natural 5 with a flat 5, you end up with a diminished major seventh chord. So a diminished major seventh chord is the same as a minor major seventh chord with a flat 5. So another label for B diminished major 7 is B minor major 7 flat 5. Now, in jazz writing, a diminished major seventh chord is sometimes just labeled as a fully diminished seventh chord. The reason is that the major 7 is already one of the 4 extensions of a fully diminished seventh chord, and we'll learn about these extensions later in the series. So, if a jazz player sees a fully diminished seventh chord, he might end up playing the major 7 anyway, since it is already one of the extensions of the fully diminished seventh chord. With this in mind, let's go back to the chord we analyzed, F sharp diminished major 11 over A. Since we learned that another label for a diminished major seventh chord is a minor major seventh chord with a flat 5, another label for this chord is F sharp minor major 11 flat 5 over A. These altered 5 labels are very common in jazz writing, and they are easy to interpret because they reduce the number of qualities you have to memorize, and instead simply indicate how to alter the 5.